Look at you. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I was playing with filters and whatnots, and some of them were making me laugh. Here.
We're just so you know, we're only in practice mode. We haven't started. So we're recording, but
Okay.
it's not nothing's happening. So you can do whatever you want. I'm gonna
So,
do the same thing. I'm gonna check my audio on a couple things.
I was, they let you do eyebrows. I was like,
Let me do it again. Show me again. I like the first one.
I was like, oh my God, that is just too funny. But
That's
what's
too
really,
much.
this is
Yeah,
the funny,
oh my God. What filter is that?
mustache and beard filter.
On
Ah,
what? What software?
it's in background effects on Zoom.
No way.
Yeah, so if you wanted to go with a goatee, you could have it
Oh
put one
my
on you.
God. Funny, I've never played with that actually. I have to mess with.
Oh
You
God.
know where I manipulate my stuff is here I could show you real quick. See my camera, I got this new kick-ass camera that moves around.
Uh-huh.
So I can do, and I don't filter much. I like to try to be as authentic as I can. But like I can change my look. Take a look at see if I like pull my glasses down real quick. So I'm gonna go to blush. Let's call it rose. You ready for this?
Uh-huh.
Can you see the difference?
Too much.
Did you tell?
Not really.
Yeah, it's subtle. It's very subtle.
Yeah,
If you have the if you saw it on my side, you'd see it more noticeably. But you can influence anything, man. The color, and it's all in the camera too, by the way.
that's
So it's crazy.
crazy.
Yeah, it probably the way I have my lighting set up, because I don't do the big beaming lights. I have sometimes I'll do it, but the way I have my lighting set up, I like it. It's kind of like just softer instead of having like you have a studio coming at you. I'm going to experiment with a couple of things. I've been recording my platform coursework. So I did 5 lessons yesterday. I got 5 today. I'm relaunching. I mean, not relaunching. I'm launching it this month in June. So that's a whole other thing you're going to be exposed to. Pretty exciting. All right. So let's talk about this before we get into it. When we start, we'll have 30 minutes as a goal or less, depending. I'll just kind of roll with it. I'm not going to give you the questions in advance, but think of it like a sequence. The first kind of questions I always got to get to know. I pre-frame it. Hey, this is the modeling series, Mike Lindstrom. I got a good friend, guest, Leigh. Are you still? I mean, because your moniker, I have it as you can see on the screen, Leigh Mills Jacobs. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. Um, and then how you got into the bit, like your story. How'd you get in the industry? So you kind of bring us from the past to current. And then once we're at current, we start talking about industry things, things that you're involved with and stuff like that. But it's not just about you. It's about your like opinions or things you see or something. So again, I already have my questions, so I'm not going to give those out. I want you to react to them.
Okay.
But say whatever you want. Remember, we're not live, so we can cut stuff out. I can delete stuff, whatever we want to do. So, but just act like, but you want to, when you do these, you want to act like there's 500 people watching. Don't act like we're recording. Act like there's 500 people. So
Okay.
your game time. I'm not going to do. Sometimes I'll do a setup where I'll do. Hey, we're going to do Q&A at the end, right? Okay, we got a couple questions on. We're not going to do that. We're going to do it like
Okay.
it's our show. It's my show. It's a podcast. Like a true webinar, you would have guests and you'd have open questions, people raising their hand. We're going to act like that's not a thing. This is a podcast with Mike and a special guest. So this is Mike's show and Lee's show. There's no one that's going to be interrupting us in any way. No questions, etc. So anything you want me to know or highlight?
Um, no, I figured we'd just go with it, and I'm kind of excited about it. I have come to the realization that everybody has a story.
Yep.
Everybody has a story, and it can benefit somebody somewhere if you're willing to be authentic and raw. and let people in
Yep.
on your not stuff that you always put out front. So
Yep.
I'm excited.
Okay, cool. All right. So if you ever, so remember, brevity is power on questions. So, like, even when I give you the first question about like your background,
Mhm.
you got to be tight. You can't say, yeah, if you do 10 minutes of your history, that's no bueno. You got to keep it tight.
Right.
So, questions that are if I see you go long-winded, remember always think you're being interviewed, right? And the listener, think of that because I can do it. I have a tendency, I can go on and on, but
Yeah, I can too.
I catch myself. I know I'm like, okay, if I've talked now for a full minute, I got to shut up and just check in. If you see me, if you just, I'm going to be engaged and just looking right into the camera. But if you see me kind of more aggressively nodding my head like this, that means wind
Move
up that
along.
move,
Okay.
wind up that question. Now, if you just see me nodding my head, but I'll do it like this. It's like, and that's just like your cue to like, okay, I'm going long.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm going to let you go. I'm not going to interrupt you at all. All right, cool. Make sure my phone's on vibrate. Get on that. Make sure. Do you have any stuff in the background that would ring or?
I've got my phone on vibrate, so no, we should be good.
Uh, okay. Oh, one last thing. What was the year that I forgot to pull this up last night? The actual year that we met, you and I. Was it 19?
Yeah.
Was it
Yep,
19? I mean, it doesn't
it
matter.
was
Okay.
January 19.
Okay. And I'm gonna don't be weird about referencing other companies and who you've been with. I mean, I'm gonna do that a little bit too. You want to show off a little bit of, hey, I've been around, man. I'm not a one trick pony here. I know when I stuff and I've been around and I know my stuff. So I'm not going to shy away from um, not mentioning names of companies you've been involved with. People know that people in our industry come from other places. It's not a big deal. We don't want to talk all about One Digital, right? But it's okay to say, hey, that's where you and I met. You had a good stint there. We're going to be positive about it, right? But hey, this is where you've been. So you've been here at USI for 2 years, 1 month, correct?
To be 2 years this month.
2 years. Okay. I was looking at all your LinkedIn stuff. They have it as 2 years plus one, so 2 years. Okay. All right, cool. All right, I think we're good. Let me get my last drink of coffee.
2 years on the 20th.
Hmm. You can say that if you can say that if you want. I mean, I want this to be somewhat evergreen, meaning we don't timestamp stuff because we're gonna be able to take clips out of here that have nothing to do with anything. Because you think about like 30 full minutes in front to back, you can do whatever you want with, stick it on YouTube. But the bigger goal is to take snippets, take a 90-second clip on that. So when you think about when you're doing an answer, think like that. Like, hey, I'm gonna give in my good questions, I'm gonna get your stuff out. Think, okay, Mike's gonna pull 90 seconds of this and stick it somewhere because I'm gonna put it in the editing software where you see the captions, and then you can go stick that in marketing places. So when you're going too long because you're thinking like a long interview, you got to think like this is a bunch of small interviews.
Okay.
That's another way of thinking about it. All right,
Okay.
cool. All right, ready to rock and roll?
Sure.
All right, let's see here. All right. Let's get this started. All right, everyone. Mike Lindstrom here, back in the modeling series. I love modeling. I was called modeling is the duplication of success. My mentors taught me that 20 plus years ago. Go find people that are doing great things, highlight their beliefs, highlight their behaviors. What are they doing to be successful? So, as you all know, in my business as executive coach, I have the good fortune of working with not just as partners and clients, but they become friends, amazing people, not just in the insurance industry, but outside the insurance industry. And I'm excited about today. Leigh Mills Jacobs. This is someone I've known dating back before COVID, 2019. And it's been an amazing run. We met at a conference. I'll let her tell that story, her version. And then engaged in a coaching relationship. And we still have a coaching relationship. It's like partnership. And we're friends. We've been through a lot together and I've seen a lot, but I see a special talent, a belief, and just a human being in Leigh. And I thought it'd be amazing to have her come on for at least a half hour. I get to interview her as the rules go in modeling series. She does not know the questions, so you get pure authenticity from her today. So first of all, Leigh, thanks for joining me today. It's such an honor to have you today.
Thanks for inviting me. Very
So
excited.
how did we meet in your version? What's your 1 minute version of it?
Well, I got invited to your session because I had had a great year. You had to have a certain amount of sales and went to your class. And I think it was Guardian that sponsored you.
That's
And
right.
then they sponsored 50% of your fee to the first five people who signed up.
That's right.
And I think I was the fifth. I think I
Wow.
got in right under the deadline in 2019, and I was struggling. I was living in, let's just say I had secret things going on that I was dealing with that I wasn't telling anybody and trying to push through. And so I accredit you to being part of my lifeline and a person who really helped save my life. So
Oh man,
thank
thank
you,
you.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And when you meet people in my role, I never know what I'm getting into when I meet somebody for the first time. Usually it's at an insurance conference. It's everyone wants to make more money and be the top rep and all that stuff. But when I met you, I realized there's a different energy about the things you come to work on. So thank you for saying that. Well, as always, we got to find out your lineage. Everyone in the industry has a lineage. You came from somewhere. I was looking at my notes. I think dating back to 1989, you helped somebody opened an office in 1989. Is that right? Margie
That's
was one of the first
Margie,
people to influence you.
my
Tell us the
mentor.
story. Tell
Yeah,
us,
my
yeah, tell us
mentor,
a little bit about the
Margie.
women. Go ahead.
My mentor, Margie Aerosmith, she and I opened a property and casualty agency here in Jacksonville. And she would, she did her best prospecting when it was raining. And we said people felt sorry for her. She would come in off the street when it was raining and get expiration dates, and we just built it from nothing. And it's still going today. Her son took it over. Um, it was a great ride. It was a really great ride. I ended up going back to college. I was a late bloomer and went to work for entrepreneurs who had many companies, and I was their risk manager actually. And one of those companies was a employee benefits company, and I had to go to them and tell them that they had to fire the guy that was running it for him because he had pled guilty to embezzling a retirement plan.
Oh,
And you know it was their best friend.
wow.
So the owner's wife looked at me and goes, "Well, you can run that company." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. I'm property and casualty. That's benefits." And basically, the next morning, this tells you how long ago it was. I was sitting on the side of my bed, putting my pantyhose on, and that scripture, "My ways aren't your ways, and your ways aren't my ways," came into my head. And I said, "Okay, Lord." So I told Connie, I said, "Well, if you want me to try this, I will. This is what the Lord said to me this morning. But if I don't like it, I want my old job back." And so this is how I got into employee benefits. And here I am today. And that was about 30 years ago.
My gosh. So you brought her name up and you said mentor. That's a big statement. Give me like one or two things that you learned from her. I mean, that's being a mentor, especially that early in the game. That person knows a lot more than you at that point. What'd you learn?
Class and grace and hard work. I mean, she was the suck it up, go to work. There's somebody in the world worse off than you are, and it was do the work. Very disciplined. And she was that person when you met her, if you never met her again, you were glad she crossed your path. And I wanted to be like her. I wanted people to be glad they had met Leigh Jacobs when they left. And so it was just always an aspiration.
Wow, that's great. I do this a bit in my insurance events. Show of hands, how many people went to high school or college and said, "I'm going into insurance"? And no hands go up. As you know, it's a joke, right? That's one of my icebreakers. So, but I always ask the next question. You're here, something got you to stay. So that's a question for you. Once you got in, there's something got its hooks in you. What was the hook for you to stay in the insurance industry?
I think my greatest hook was when I helped people. In employee benefits, we don't sell life insurance, we sell death insurance. No one would buy it if we called it that. We don't
Yeah.
sell health insurance, we sell sickness insurance. And so for me, I get my greatest satisfaction is when I can help somebody because we're really helping them when life is at the worst for them. And it gives me a lot of joy when I can walk them down the path and get them through the maze. Sometimes it gets very, very cloudy and murky. And I've been able to help some people in sad times. And those are the times when you go, yeah, I like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
So I love,
working with
no, but
employer groups, it's not an impact of one person. You're impacting 100, 200, 300, 500 people based on some of the suggestions and recommendations that you're making to an employer group. So it's the way to impact more than one person at a time.
yeah, when I first started consulting the industry, I didn't have a lot of insurance background at all as a consultant. I had so many other verticals I worked with, and I thought it was interesting how the industry called it the word lives. So it occurred to me one time, I said, have you ever stopped and thought about what you all do? You're impacting lives. We throw those terms around like, oh, it's just another case, 300 lives. I made a lot of money on it because it's a bunch of people. No, these are lives. So that question that you bring that up, what give me one good peak moment story of a life. Like you have one good example where you can look back. I'm sure you have many where you can say, hey, I remember 10 years ago, there was one particular individual at this company, or there's something that stood out that just it like re-edified. This is why I do what I do. Do you have one or two of those that you could share?
I do. There was a gentleman, his wife was dying of cancer, and he had an Aflac policy, and he needed a specific report so that Aflac would release the money to him because even when you have good insurance, cancer treatments are expensive. And so he really needed his cancer policy to help pay for some of those things. And when your spouse is sick with cancer, what are you not doing? You're not working. You're helping your spouse. And so I was able to make a couple of phone calls, pulled a couple of reports, and I was able to get his money released to him within 48 hours. And he called me back and he was just almost in tears, thank you so much. And so, sometimes I always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. But if you've got both, if you know it and you know someone, you can really make magic for somebody's life.
Yeah, that's a great story. You're so right, though. I think that's one of the things I love about what you all do, education. So I think a lot of people get this misconception, oh, brokers, they make a bunch of money and they sit on their book and they're off on the golf course and goofing around on yachts in Florida. That is not true. You start thinking about the impacts that you have. So I'm curious to know, like, what are some of the principles that you stand firm on in your role? I mean, you have a duty, if you will, as a consultant. So a couple of the key principles that you kind of stand by when you go out and you deliver these kind of great stories.
Well, first and foremost, I told you I went to college after I worked for Margie. So I was a late bloomer. I didn't graduate and get my college degree till I was 38. So I lived payday to payday, or I could also say I didn't make it to payday. So I have a real heart for those employees who are the backbone of a lot of companies that are not making, $50,000 a year. They're making 30. And so I have a real passion for how much does the insurance cost them per pay period. But then also, how much does it cost when they go? So you have to look at both sides. Is it really affordable? Let's talk about it. Um, and then last year I got the privilege, I guess I would call it that, of using this product that I sell. And it was not planned by any stretch of the imagination. And I am one of those people who hit max out of pocket. And not only did I hit it, but my husband hit it too. So we hit family max out of pocket in a matter of 7 days. So
Wow.
I have a new concept and a new way that I look at things. Those max out of pockets, when my peers and I tell you, oh, nobody hits them, that's not true. And to the people who do hit them, it hurts. And so I'm very passionate about finding a way to make the plans affordable for the employer, but also let's not forget about that end user and let's not put them into bankruptcy because they had to use it. So it
Yeah.
gives me a different perspective. I've been poor, and so I look at it from that perspective, and then I've been a user, and it hurts when you're the user. So let's find a way to make that work for both the employer as well as the employee.
Wow. So I have the benefit of having a confidential relationship with you and my coaching clients. So I'm gonna take a chance here on this one.
Okay.
I know everything. What can you share? Because your story to me, watching you in the last 2 years, is incredible. So can you share whatever you're comfortable with, what's going on in your life? Kind of you just alluded to it, so you opened the door a little bit.
Right.
Um, Share with us what you're willing to share about what's going on in your life the last couple of years.
Well, if you live in the Jacksonville area and pay attention to commercials, if you see the UF Health Shands commercial about heart health, you may or may not know that I am in that commercial. And one of the doctors that was part of the filming of that said, "Why are you using her?" And they looked at him and said, "Well, she's one of our patients." So I wasn't feeling well last year, and just was off. Luckily for me, I was off because my potassium was low and my magnesium was low, but I had a very astute doctor who didn't like my risk factors and said, "I want you to go to the heart cath lab tomorrow." And I'm like, "What? No." And so then the head of cardiology came in and said, "I think you're 30 days from having an event." I was like, "Oh, well, I think I'll go to the cath lab." And so the next day I went, and I thought I was going to be able to say, "See, I told you so, I'm fine." And the doctor that was in there said, "Okay, we're putting a stent in now." And I said, "Excuse me, you're doing what?" "Yep,
Wow.
your Widowmaker, 85% blocked." I was like,
Oh my.
wow. So I felt like, and I was training for a marathon. So I was running alone by myself at night. So I feel very, very blessed. I think God had his protection around me for sure. But more than that, my husband lives in Maryland, so we're doing this commute thing for now. And he came down to be with me, and he is a very competitive man and decided he needed to one up me. So he had a heart attack in my hospital room that night, and it literally it saved his life. Had he been anywhere else, he probably would not have survived. So I said, God used me to save him and get him down to Florida. And I never go to UF. That's the other thing. I never go to UF, but it was the closest on the way to work. And my husband needed UF because his was very complex and he needed the latest and greatest and was able to get that. And we are very grateful. So that's how I know about Max Out of Pocket
My
and how
God.
painful it is.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know
Sure.
that. I didn't know how much comfort you'd have around sharing that. You're always such a loving and authentic person and a prayerful person. So thank you for sharing that because I always say that you never fully appreciate the extent of your influence on other people in life. But when you
Right.
start telling stories and being vulnerable, that's when that influence goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So somebody may watch this and go, "Oh my gosh, that's me. That's my grandfather. That's my dad. That's my son or my daughter." So
Right.
that's my hope with modeling series. You inspire people. You know, we say you want to touch people, move people, inspire people, and even agitate. Agitate means shake them up a little bit, get them out of their comfort zone. And sometimes people don't want to talk about their health or they don't want to talk about impending death because they're going to be here forever. But when they hear these kind of stories from you, Leigh, and it's so real, people go back and say, it's probably not a bad idea if I maybe revisit my insurance policy or what is a cancer policy? I didn't even know that such thing existed. So thank you for sharing that. That's very, very important for people to hear.
Well, and even, a greater frustration for me than the max out of pocket is that was 18 months ago, almost 15 months ago. I'm still fighting medical bills. I'm still having people say, "You owe this," and I don't owe anything. I hit max out of pocket. And I think to myself, I do this for a living. What do people do that don't know better? They pay bills they shouldn't pay.
Yep.
So that's like my new soapbox. Do
Yeah.
not just pay every bill you receive. Challenge it. Make
Yeah.
sure and ask questions.
Yeah. That brings me to my next question is I love asking guests, what gets you fired up? What gets you fired up about the industry, about your job position? I ask this of a lawyer, a doctor, accountant. So when it comes to the industry, and we're not picking on the industry, that's not the goal.
Right.
But when you think about what gets you up in the morning, what gets you pumped up, passionate, even angry, like what are some of the things relative to the industry and what you're doing? Maybe this touches on some of it. Well, what gets you fired up?
I think one of the main things that fires me up is when employers are just paying premiums every month and think that that's the best way to do it. There are such better ways to finance health insurance than just paying a fully insured premium. And if it's managed properly, there is over a 5 year period, you're always going to be better off doing something different. And I finally say, put it in a financial situation. Would you ever take a loan for a 20% interest for 12 months on $1 million loan? No, you would never do that. But employers do it every year when they buy their health insurance. And so I am kind of on a crusade to try to help employers see you can decrease this tremendously and not change anything about your plans. Just change the way you pay for it. So that's my new crusade.
I love it. That's each interview I do in these modeling series, I call it piece of advice, POA. So that's a great POA. So let's switch to the consumer. You've kind of done a few of those already, but if you had to talk directly to an employee, a consumer, somebody that might be watching this that's not, making the decisions, what would you tell that person?
How much help are you getting? You know, are you picking the lowest premium plan? Because if that's how you're making your decisions, you need to reach out to somebody else because you need to look at not what it just costs you out of your paycheck every week. You need to see how much does it cost you when you go, and you've got to add both of those costs together. And a lot of times people are afraid of like a high deductible health plan. Oh my goodness. Well, but let's look at it because a lot of times those max out of pockets are lower. Or how often do you go? And they're just afraid. They don't know what a primary care doctor costs. Well, let's call your primary. How much do you charge for your visit? And then let's do the math. And so I like to have those conversations with employees. Let's look at the real math, not
Yeah.
just what comes out of your paycheck. And I don't want you to take the lowest plan and then not use it because you can't afford to use it because you've picked a really poopy plan. So, I mean, and there are some really poopy plans out there. So
Yeah.
I just like to have the conversation with them. Let's talk about what you're picking and why. And does it really meet your needs? Because ultimately, that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to meet a need when you're in need.
Yeah. Poopy plans. I'm coining that one. I've not heard that one before. I'm taking that one. That's right out of your.
Okay.
I'm giving you full credit for that one. Uh,
Okay. It's
let's
a
switch up.
technical term.
It should be a technical term,
That's
absolutely.
right.
All right, so think about where the industry is and where we're going. So I'm not trying to get you to be seeing the future here, but you see trends. I love talking about trends in any industry or vertical. What are you seeing out there? Like, what are you not to predict, but you're saying, okay, right now it's not politics either. Let's not get caught up in blue, red, who's in the administration. That's not this question. This question is about what are you seeing out there? People want to lift their gaze, and this is really good for a CEO, CFO, leader to hear from you because you're an expert. What are you seeing in terms of trends in the industry?
There are two new players in North Florida, and both of them have been created out of the CEO's poor experience with this industry. And one of them is called Curative. And basically, after you pay your premium, when you go and use the insurance, it doesn't cost you anything at the provider level. It's all covered. And they're having, and you think, oh my gosh, nobody can afford to do that. The premium must be terrible. And it really isn't. I have a client, and it's funny, it's been very, very much embraced by blue collar. And you would think that would be white collar, but it has really been the blue collar because they're having such a hard time finding technicians. Um, but that plan is running really well because they're all about that old HMO model, not you have to get permission to go somewhere, but we want you to go and get your wellness visits. We want you to go to the doctor. We want to catch it before it gets bad. And their outcomes have been phenomenal. Now, there are some handcuffs. You have to do some things in order to qualify for going to the provider for free. And then there's another company called Sidecar, and they don't issue you an ID card. They issue you a credit card, and they give you let's say, go to your primary care for your zip code. They're going to give you $150. I got to do round numbers so I can do it in my head fast. If your primary charges $100, then you've saved $50 over what they said you could spend.
Yep.
That $50 then gets split. 25 goes into your bank, 25 goes obviously back to the insurance company's bank. At the end of the year, if you have it, and let's say you're a specialist, you get $200, but your specialist charges $225. Well, you can use that 25 over in your bank to cover it. So literally you can go to the providers and it not cost you anything. Because I've told you if you stay within this, it doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
But at the end of the year, let's say they had a gentleman who made $3,000. At the end of the year, he had $3,000 in his bank. The insurance company paid him a check of $3,000. Now, the reason I'm excited about this company is we know engaged employees are staying employees.
Right.
Wow, how great for an HR person to be able to go granular and have the engagement even at the medical level. One of the top 3 to 5 things on that P&L list is always employee benefits. So now I've got engagement at that level. How exciting is that?
Yeah.
And I have engaged the employee so that they could possibly get a bonus for shopping.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other piece that's nice is if they cannot find a provider for that amount, they call the insurance company and say, hey, there's no provider in my zip code that takes that amount. The company will increase it and
Hmm.
give them the amount that it will take. So I really love that. Now, obviously, if you have an emergency, they have networks and things in place for emergencies. But if you can go in and, pre-schedule your knee, the gentleman who made the 3,000, it was from a knee surgery. His doctor practiced at 2 different areas. The surgery was, I think, 9,000 was the approval. And I think he got it for 3 because he went to outpatient instead of the hospital. And
Yep.
so he split the savings. That was awesome. I was like, I
Yep.
love that. So there's some exciting things. And the reason that happened is that CEO needed an MRI and he got tired of waiting on the approval. So he said, hey, how much does it cost if I pay cash? And the price they quoted was half of what they had quoted had he used his insurance. And he goes, what's the deal? And they said, you pay cash. I don't have to
Yeah.
file. And that was how he started the company. It was all
Wow.
out of an experience by a CEO, and he got ticked off about it. So we're seeing some very creative things, and I love it because, and I think at the end of the day, we need to know what it costs when we go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a big thing in our industry is the mystery of what stuff costs. Why is a drug only this way? I mean, you see the ads on television for, oh my gosh, you get a Viagra pill for 75 cents. And a lot of people don't know that. I mean, I'm really glad that a lot of these companies are educating, going straight to the consumer and saying,
Right.
hey, this is just one example, by the way. This is any pharmaceutical company, this is educating the consumer. But I think what you said is such an important thing. Ask questions, reach out to people, ask for help, call you. I mean, you're going to have your contact information, of course, at the end for anybody who wants to reach out to you, whether you're employee or employee. I know you're very abundant about your sharing, and I think that's an important thing to highlight. Let me shift real quick to outside of work. So things that you're doing outside of work, it could be nonprofit work, contribution work, community. Let's highlight some of those things. I think it's such an important thing to highlight. And we spend so much time about work and what you do to model, but I know you're doing things outside of work. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm the membership director for HR Florida. So there are a lot of members for SHRM National, and they don't realize that there is a local chapter where they can connect and network. The best time to network is when you're employed. The worst time is when you're looking for a job. So there's all kinds of educational opportunities that are available, as well as leadership positions that are available. And it's just a great way to meet other HR people and to be able to talk about what's going on in your community. I always jokingly say I have a lot of HR friends, and they're some of the loneliest people I know because they really can't have friends at their companies. I mean, think about it. They're dealing with confidential stuff, and so they can come to a local chapter meeting and they can find other friends who have no friends. So that's kind of my joke. The other thing, and I love working with HR Florida and SHRM. I think they do fantastic job for the HR community. But then I'm also passionate about the veteran. And I work with an organization called Operation New Uniform. And I love what we do. We help veterans learn about their identity and who they are outside of that uniform. I mean, in the military, they're called either by their last name or by their rank. or by what they do. And so when they leave, it's like, well, who am I? And so we really try to focus on A, you don't want the next job, you want your next career. We don't want you to settle for a job. And B, we want you to know who you are, or basically who you are. What is your identity outside your role? And so I'm really passionate about that. And I've been on the board and I have actually supported the organization since it started. And the founder came to me and said, we appreciate your money, but we want your time and talent. And so I've been serving on the board, I think, for about 6 or 7 years.
That's great. That's great. All right, we're just have to wind up. We always at the end like to
Okay.
give like a little bit of life advice here. So let the cup this kind of rapid fire. So give us some books. What are you reading? Give us some good like favorite books. What have you been reading lately, or one that you highlight, or one that you love?
Run Over by the Grace Train
Okay.
by Joby Martin. It's fantastic. I think what I love the most is it's like there's nothing that I can do to deserve God's grace. It's freely given um, through his son Jesus. And I love that. And sometimes I think we forget, we think we need to be good. We need to do this. We need to, you know what? Grace is just that. It's God's grace and it is freely given to those who believe.
Love it. All
I
right.
love it.
What are your favorite quotes?
Oh, I I really love Don't Act Small. I forget the lady who says it, but basically, acting small doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
And that your greatest fear isn't fear of failure. Your greatest fear is fear of success. So don't play small. Give what you've got. There are people out there who need your knowledge. And gosh, I wish I could come up with her name. I read it every morning too to remind myself. Never play
Uh,
small.
we can Google it. It's easy. ChatGPT,
Yeah,
Google, we can figure that out. All
there
right.
you go.
So I always like to wrap things up with takeaways, right? Piece of advice. This would be life principles, not just business. We've talked a lot about that. So if you had a couple, like you, let's say you're talking to somebody who's coming up in the industry, talking to a young man or woman, like much like you back in 1989, that's considering a career or career in insurance, doesn't matter. But if you had to give advice to someone that's on the come up or just looking at things from the outside, it's really your call how you want to do it. But I always like to have key takeaways or piece of advice for life, not just for business. What would you say?
I would say always keep your motives pure, and it always has to be about what's best for your client and not what's best for your company or what's best for you. And as long as you can do that, that will allow you to look in the mirror and say, you did a good job today. And you're going to have battles sometimes. I have fought some battles. I have told an employer, I'm not doing that. That's not what's best for the client. And sometimes you've got to stand your ground. And
Yeah,
it's not always comfortable, but at the end of the day, you'll be glad you did.
yeah, that's such a
Integrity, yeah,
yeah,
integrity, your name, your word, your integrity, and your ethics. It's all you've got. And you lose it, it's difficult to ever get it back. So I say protect that at everything you've got, protect that.
great. I get that question a lot in my work. People ask me those questions when I do interviews on podcasts. What's the difference between honesty and integrity and authenticity and all the words that we throw around? I always make it real simple. Integrity is when no one's looking. No one's around and the cameras are maybe there's hidden camera like you see the TikTok videos you throw $100 bill on the ground and there's a hidden camera. What's
Yeah,
that person do when no one's looking around? That's the person's in your gut, your instincts is another way of thinking of it. And I think it's your value system, but when you have a certain instinct around something, and I know you stand firm on that because I've known you for 6 years. So having you highlight that, it's such an important thing for other professionals to hear because there's a lot of pressure people feel to want to cave to the politics or to the title because they really want that job, and they're not going to be taking a stand for themselves. They're trying to take a stand for something that they don't stand for. So I think that's
right.
such an important thing. So Leigh, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for being my friend. That's the most important thing. And just every 2 or 3 weeks when we're having our sessions, I have fun. I look forward to it. I get in my world in coaching, you have certain things where you're just recording all day or you're on team Zooms. And there's other times where I'm one-on-one. Sometimes it's just over the phone. You and I are always pretty good about staying on camera. So I get to literally see you every 2 weeks. So it's one of my joys in my coaching roster. So I just want to say thank you that so much for the friendship, and then thank you for being real with us today, because I think that's an important thing to highlight people and what they're doing. So from my heart to yours.
Well, I appreciate it. It's fun to join you today.
All
I've
right.
enjoyed
Thank you.
watching other people in the hot seat.
Yeah. Thank you so much. God
Thanks.
bless.
Talk to you
Okay.
soon. All right, bye.